Today's topic is microservices. Okay. So what is microservices? Any idea, Jitika, about microservices? Actually, like suppose this is Amazon. This is Amazon website. Here you can see this. There is a this is a group of macroservices, collection of macroservices. Here.
Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, hello.
Yeah. Sorry, sir. I was just saying it's like small components, right, that are built in an application. Um,
Yes.
uh, okay.
Actually, we divide a whole application in multiple parts,
Mm-hmm.
and each part is work like as a complete project. Okay, like suppose here this is searching. So we will create a search project, a separately project for searching. We will create
Mm-hmm.
a separate project for login. If we will create a separate part for a separate project for uh, registration. And there are multiple, you can say here, part like suppose we search here any item. But suppose we want to purchase a mobile. Okay. So uh, this output is a first service. Okay. After that, we will click on this is a description of a product. We will click on add a card to cart. So another macrosearch will execute. Okay, and it will add this component, this more product in a cart. If you open the cart, that is another macroservice. Okay, if you click on here, proceed to checkout, then another microservice will execute. Okay, here this is login for another microservice. Each and everything, we will divide a whole project in a small module, and each module will work a individual project. It will not depend on another microservice or another project. Okay, but they can interact with us. Okay, if suppose uh, search is calling add to cart will search to proceed to uh, place order. After that, you can call uh, payment, get payment. After that, check out. This type of a component, which component we can execute through a single macroservice. Like suppose here, a simple example. Suppose we want to perform. Suppose we want to add some records in a database. Okay, so we can create a macroservice. Suppose we are going to create a web service. Okay, so for insert command, we can create a API or service method. After that, Suppose we want to perform different operation like fetch the record, update the record, delete the record. Okay, suppose we are going to execute, we want to perform a web application or RESTful web service. Okay, and we want to perform this operation through a single project. So that will execute on a single port number, like suppose 8081. Okay, so all operation we can perform on a single port number. Okay, but suppose uh, if you want to, if we are if you are facing a problem in insertion or updation, so we can't execute whole application. That is a monolith concept. Mostly we use this concept in monolithic uh, project. All operation we are executing in a single project. Okay, if a project, if we want to add in new additional functionalities in this project, so we will stop the whole application. After that, we can add. If you want, if any functionality is not working, so that will affect on other functionalities. But in microservice, we create all operation on different port number. Okay. Suppose we are performing operation insert, fetch the record from the database, update the record from database, delete the record from database. Okay, but here in macro service, we use a separate port number for each operation. Suppose insertion is executing on 8081. And fetching is executing on 8082. Updation we are performing on 8083, 8084. Okay, all are executing on a separate port number. Okay, insertion is executed on 8081, fetch 8082, updation we are performing on 8083, and deletion we are performing 8084. Okay, so here all are separate, all are working on a separate port number. They are not interfering, that affecting on other functionalities. If any functionality is not working, so the rest of all other functionality will work, no problem, because they are not affecting to other macro service. But if they have requirement, so they can interact with each other. Okay, insertion can call fetch, fetch can call update, update can call delete if they have requirement. Okay, like suppose here you can see this in this in here you can see this. There are multiple project like Eureka server first and a gateway, and there are separate all here you can see multiple project. Imagine these are microservices because each microservice is just like as a whole project. Okay, so if we are executing a one project, so it will not affect to another project. That is same concept of microservice architecture. Here, all functionality, for all functionality, we will create a separate project. And here you can see this one project will not affect to another project. Okay, they are individual. But here, they cannot interact with each other. But in microservices, each project can interact with each other. That is the main benefit of microservices. Second thing, if you want to add a new project, you can easily execute. You can add a new project. If you want to delete a new project, it's very easy. So, uh, microservices have many benefits of using of microservice. So mostly website, mainly application we prefer macroservices. Okay. So how to perform? Like suppose here, there is a first gateway. There are different project. They are working on different port number. We can execute on different port number, no problem. Okay. So here, suppose here I have only this project. Okay, so how to connect to each other, how to fetch the record, how to combine the all macroservices. For this purpose, we use Eureka server. We will all macroservices we will register on Eureka server. Okay, so if we want to develop a web application, it is very simple thing that a web application have 100 or more than 100 macroservices. Okay, so there are multiple, suppose there are 100 microservice. So we are using 100 port number. Okay, so here we will register all microservice with Eureka server. And Eureka server handle, if suppose we want to call any macroservice, so Eureka server fetch that macroservice and execute it. Okay, for load balancing, for registering, we use a Eureka server in microservices. Okay, but there is a question. Suppose we have 200 macroservice, 300 macroservice. How to remember this? Which macroservice are working, are executing on which port number? So for this purpose, we use a gateway application, gateway API. Okay, and we can mention it. We will mention the all macroservice port number in gateway application. And this gateway application also will work on a separate port number. Suppose it is working, it gateway is executing on 111. Okay. So through if we declare the all port number, all macro service in gateway API, so we have not need to remember this. What is the port number of that microservice. Only we use the port number of gateway API, and we can execute all microservice. Okay, only base of single port number, we can execute all microservice. That is also beneficial for security purpose, because we have not need to share the all port number to client. We will share only the port number of gateway, and our client will access the all macros through the port number of gateway. We can mention the all macros port number in gateway. Okay, and our client will execute through the port number of gateway. So it is also beneficial for our project for security purpose. Okay, so suppose we want to create a microservice. So actually microservice, uh, you can say each microservice is a RESTful web service. There is a collection of RESTful web service. Okay, so we are creating, suppose here 100 microservices are we are using in a web application. So actually we are using 100 RESTful web service. Okay, so in monolithic architecture, whole project, whole application executes on a single port number. But here in microservice, we divide the each functionalities in a separate RESTful web service. And each RESTful service will execute on a separate port number. Okay? They are working individually, but they can interact with each other. Okay? Hello? Understood? Hello? Anybody
Yes,
there?
sir, it's understood. Yeah, I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. Here, suppose here, I have, for example, this is a first microservice. First, like if you want to develop a microservice, so the name should be in small letters, in lowercase. Okay, like suppose here is the first. Okay, so here is the first microservice. Okay, so suppose we want to develop a microservice. So I'm going to create a example of microservice, create a new, click on Spring Starter project. Here we can specify the port number, a microservice name, like suppose we want to create a microservice for searching. Okay, so name should be in small letter, search. Okay, specify the all things same as Spring Boot application. Click on next, and here you can select a version of a Spring Boot. After that, we'll add, first of all, add this is a microservice to Eureka Discovery Client. Dependency of this, and Spring Web, because each microservice will work as a web application, and config server for configuration. Suppose we have multiple microservice and we want to perform all operation on database. So database have same configuration, means URL, driver class, username, password. So we can declare in config server. We have not need to declare it separate. Okay, there is a benefit of for configurations or single configuration, we use config server. So we can add configure server, and if you want to, we use Spring Boot Actuator. Actuator is used to manage and maintain our web application or microservices or web applications. So for this purpose, we use Spring Boot Actuator, and here another Spring Boot DevOps. If you want to perform Dev applications, DevOps, so we can add dependency of DevOps also. So these dependency add in your project. After that, you can click on next, then finish. Okay. So here you can see this is a search microservice. Second time, okay, I'm going to open this. Okay, this is first microservice. Okay, so here this is Eureka server, and we will register the our microservice in the Eureka server. So Eureka server and these microservices are client. So here we declare a annotation enabled discovery client. Okay, Eureka server search this microservice. So we will register this microservice in Eureka server. Okay, and here this is a controller, REST mapping. Here you can see this. And here we are using get mapping, and also here we are using get mapping, register mapping, sorry, request mapping. And that is a company. So suppose we want to execute this is the first microservice. We are going to execute it. Okay. So run this. Okay, microservice, first microservice is executing. Okay, started for microservice. Okay, actually, first of all, we will start Eureka server. If you want to create a Eureka server, so same as here, these are the, if you want to create a Eureka server, so same as last project, click on File, New, Spring Starter project. We can specify here name, Eureka server 1, like you can specify any name. Next, here must be add here Eureka server. Here you can see dependency of Eureka server. That is server of Netflix, but that is the quality of capability of your Spring Boot. We can use Netflix uh, server through the through a single dependency. We can access the Netflix Eureka server. Okay, so please add Eureka server dependency and add Eureka disk, sorry, actuator, Spring Boot DevOps, and config server. Please add these chart macros dependency and click on next and click on free, then it will create. So you can see here after creation, Eureka, this is Eureka server, and there is a, you can check here, these are the dependency actuator, config server, Spring Cloud, starter, Netflix, Eureka server, DevTools. Okay, these are the dependency of Eureka server. And here, open your main classes. Okay, please add here enable Eureka server annotation. Okay, and this application.properties file. So must be declared here application.name and port number. The default port number of Eureka server is 8761. Okay, and here Eureka client register with Eureka and Eureka client.fetch registry is equal to false. Both are false. Why? What is the Eureka? Actually, this is also a Spring Boot application. Okay, so here Eureka client registered with Eureka. So this application will not register on Eureka server as a client. Okay, so here Eureka.client registered with Eureka false. It will not register as a client on Eureka server. Second thing, if Eureka server fetch the client, so in this it will not fetch this program as a client. Okay, so here I declare false. Okay, after that we can execute it for this purpose. Let's see. Eureka server. Okay, Tomcat. Start a Tomcat server. 8081 first. Fast microservice executing on 8081. Let's register. Okay, now we can execute Eureka server for this purpose. Localhost and the port number is 8761. Okay, that is by default port number of Eureka server, as you can see this here. Okay, data center, environment, current time, date. These are the information about the here. The first microservice is executing. Okay, that's port number is 8081. Okay, only one uh, microservice is currently executing and that registered on Eureka server. Okay, you can see this. The only information about this Eureka server. If you want to add another microservice, the same as you can create it and suppose we have a second microservice. Same as enable discovery client. Run this microservice. Second microservice. Second microservice up. Status up. And now open. Here there is it. You can see here only one microservice. First, refresh it. You can see the second microservice. Okay. So we registered the all microservice on Eureka server. And Eureka server perform the all if you want to fetch any microservice, we can fetch through the Eureka server, and it also performing the load balancing. What is the meaning of load balancing? Like suppose here, you can see this. This is Amazon website. Okay, and here you can see this. Mostly all user will use search microservice, login microservice, register microservice. The it it faces the you can huge large number of traffic on search, on login, on uh, register. Register is not more than login, but search, mostly user use search more traffic. So actually, uh, search macroservice handle more traffic. So for this purpose, we can create multiple macroservice of search. Suppose we have a search microservice. And it have more traffic, suppose, okay? So we can create multiple macroservice of search. And we can execute on different port number. Suppose one such microservice is executing on 8081, 80606, 8087, 8080. Okay, all four microservices are performing search operation. Okay, but if any port number is suppose 8086 is facing more traffic, handle more traffic. So that is the responsibility of Eureka server. All these four macros face same traffic. Okay, that is the responsibility of Eureka server. That is called load balance. It balances the all traffic in these all four microservices. Okay, that is a role of Eureka server. That is a responsibility of Eureka server. That is called load balancing. Okay, same as here. Uh, you see here, we use another server name is gateway. So actually here you can see this. Suppose we want to execute this microservice, first microservice and second microservice. So for this purpose, we have a software, Postman. I think Postman is just like as a browser. We can send any request for RESTful web service like post, get, put, delete. Suppose here we want to call first macro service. So first macro service, you can see here company. Okay. So I'm going to open this. And using 8081 port number. Okay, no problem. We can send the request directly from the browser. localhost 8081 / company / okay, this is my first macro service, and here we have a second macro service, and the request mapping is imply and get mapping is home. So here our port number is 8082. So imply home. Okay, 8082. Again, I'm going to call localhost 8082 / imply / home. This is second macro service. So here, first macro service is executing on 8081. Second macro service is executing on 8082. Okay. Now I'm going to open another macro service. Name is gateway. This is a gateway. For gateway, we use a separate port number. Like suppose here I'm using 88884. This application name gateway demo. And here we add a dependency, only a single dependency for gateway. Spring Cloud starter gateway. Only add these dependencies for gateway. Okay, we have not need to any other macro service, sorry, dependencies. Okay, and it is executing on 8888. Okay, second thing, we have need to register the all macro service in gateway. So for this purpose, we use application.yml file. YML file is just like as a uh, properties file, but here, suppose we have not to repeat a path. Okay, here Spring Cloud Gateway root. After that, we can declare the all path of macro service. So here, this ID declared for first macro service first, second for second. Here, this is URL of macro service first, and this is for second. And here, declare the path because starting first macro service will start from the company, and second macro service will start from the employee. Okay, so we have not here, if we have 100 microservice, so we will declare the all URL here and declare the predicates and ID of all microservice. Okay, now I'm going to execute it. Let's update this. Now I'm going to execute it. Okay. Running. Now I'm going to execute. I'm trying to execute it. Suppose you want to call first macro service. That is a URL of first macro service. Okay, it's a working. Now we are going to call this macro service to the port number of gateway. So here the port number of gateway is 888. Now I'm going to click use this port number. Okay, it is also working. Okay, you can see this. Suppose here, copy this. I'm going to okay, same as suppose through a single port number, we can call all macro service using gateway. So we can declare the all macro service on gateway and use separate at the place of separate port number. We use only the port number of gateway and we can access the all macro services. Okay. So these are the macro service. So first of all, we will create the macro service and registered on the Eureka server. And if you want to use a single port number or you want to use security in macro service, so we use gateway. For security purpose, in macro service, we use gateway because we use port number of gateway at the place of each macro service. Okay, I'm going